You're locked inside a steel tube the size of a school bus, 122 meters under the North Sea, breathing gas that makes your voice sound like a cartoon duck. It's day 19 of a 28-day lockdown, and there is no door. If your heart stops right now, the fastest a doctor can reach you is 6 days. That's how long it takes just to decompress your body back to the surface without killing you. The number on your pay stub for today is $2,710 for one shift. Rewind 12 years. You're 16, in your grandfather's garage, striking your first arc on a rusty piece of angle iron with a $429 Lincoln stick welder he bought at a hardware store. The bead you just laid looks like a worm that lost a fight. Between those two moments sits a career where the fatality rate runs about 40 times the average American job, where the trade will quietly take years off your life, and where the actual welding, the thing the job is named after, is maybe 10% of what you do all day. So how does a broke 16-year-old get into that chamber? What's the other 90% of the job that nobody films? And is $2,710 a day actually worth what it costs you? This is your life as every single level of an underwater welder, and exactly what it costs to climb. If you like careers broken down by what they really cost, hit subscribe. The next one's already in the works. Level 1. The garage and the pool. You're 16. The welder sits on a rolling cart in the back of the garage, and you've watched enough late-night videos to know what the arc is supposed to sound like. They call it the bacon sizzle. You clamp the ground to clean steel. You dial it to 90 amps. You drop the hood with a nod, scratch the rod like a match, and it sticks. You rip it free and a coppery taste hits your tongue. Grandpa wanders over, looks at your mess, and says 4 words. Amperage is too high. Drop it. You take it to 70. The second bead runs straighter. He nods once and walks back to his coffee. That number, 70, oh yes, remember it. It comes back at the very end of your life in this trade. 3 weekends later, your parents drive you 4 hours to the coast, and you spend $450 of saved lawn mowing money on a weekend open water scuba course. You flood your mask in the hotel pool on purpose and clear it. On your third dive, a reef shark slides under the boat and, instead of flinching, you grin around the mouthpiece. The certification card shows up in the mail 8 weeks later. You slide it behind your learner's permit. You have no idea that little card is the only reason a diving company will ever look at you, or that most people chasing this dream wash out before they ever get wet. Here's where they start losing them. Level 2. The fab shop? You're 18. A welding shop starts you at $18 an hour grinding bevels on quarter-inch plate. You sweep a shop floor that holds more equipment than every house on your street combined. The foreman shows you the sequence once. You mark the plate with soapstone. You grind a 30-degree bevel on each edge. You set the root gap with a nickel laid flat between the pieces. Because a nickel is exactly the right thickness, and nobody tells you that, you just learn it. You tack at 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock. You run a 7018 root with a tight arc. You chip, you cap. The foreman walks over, drags his thumb along the weld, and says one word, clean. You pocket that word and don't tell a soul. Friday, your check clears for $576 after tax. Here's the part that lights the fire. The shop bills the customer $95 an hour for the booth you're standing in. You make 18. Same weld, same steel. The difference is a certification you don't have yet. So one afternoon by the bay door, the foreman tells you the truth. The only ticket out of this room is a 5-month program in Florida, and it's not cheap. You stop saving your pay stubs. You start adding them up. How much is not cheap? More than you think. Level 3, Commercial Dive School. You're 19. You wire $34,578 to a commercial diving academy in Florida. And you sign a loan for the rest. 20 weeks. 9-hour days in a yard that smells like sulfur and diesel. And here's the number they don't put on the brochure. Of the students who start with you, roughly 1 in 5 will quit before graduation. Not because they can't weld, because they can't do this. Day 1, an instructor points at a row of Kirby Morgan helmets on a shelf and tells you hatting up has 10 steps, and you'll do them 400 times before he signs you off. Comms check, neck dam over the head, helmet onto the ring, latch the strap, lock the clamp, gas on, breathe, defog, thumbs up to your tender. Step off and call leaving surface. On your first chamber blowdown, they take the class to 165 feet of pressure in a dry pot, and your ears lock at 60. You swallow, you wiggle your jaw, and for one long second, you think you're the guy who's about to fail in front of everyone. And then the left ear cracks open, and you write it down without a word. Week 9, you light a cutting torch underwater for the first time, and the sulfur burn punches straight through the helmet. Week 14, you weld a certification coupon in a tank and pass the code test on the first try. You walk out with a diploma your mother frames and hangs over the dryer, and an entry-level diver card that cost $75 to apply for. The romance is gone now. The trade is real. And you're about to find out that being certified to dive and being paid to dive are two very different things, because your first job in the water isn't diving at all. Level 4, the tender. You're 20. A Louisiana inshore outfit hires you, not as a diver, as a tender at $21 an hour, which means on day 1, you wash another man's sweat out of the inside of a helmet with dish soap and a 5-gallon bucket. You spool 300 feet of umbilical onto a reel by hand. You run the comms console. And by week 3, you can name every line in that umbilical hose in the dark. Gas, comms, pneumo, hot water, strength member. Because if you can't, the diver on the other end of it dies. You stand on a barge for 14 hours in insulated bibs and the diesel exhaust lives in your beard. Then in your 6th month, it happens. A pile repair. The supervisor points at you and says 2 words. You're up. The whole deck pretends not to watch. You dress in. You descend the pile into water so black you can't see your own glove. You wire brush a 4-foot band of marine growth by feel. You measure the circumference with a piece of paracord. You set the jacket, hand tighten the straps, ratchet them down, and the grout injects clean. You surface with your umbilical squared and your voice calm. The supervisor writes it in the log, your first working dive. 2 weeks later, you read a news alert in the bunk room. A competing company sent an untrained man into 19 feet of water on his first day. He went unresponsive on a test dive and never woke up. OSHA fined the company the legal maximum, $40,329. You put the phone face down on the mattress, and you don't call your mother back that night. Because you're about to go deeper than 19 feet, a lot deeper. Before we go any deeper, my name's Calvin, and we just launched this channel for people who are fascinated by the brutal, hidden jobs almost nobody talks about. The goal is simple. Tell you what these careers actually cost, the real numbers, the real risks, the stuff the recruiters leave out. If you want to help us keep making these, consider subscribing. It's free and it helps more than you'd think. All right, we've got 400 feet to go. Let's get back down there. Level 5, the offshore diver. You're 25. A crew change puts you on a dive support vessel out of Forchon for a 28-day hitch. 2 men to a cabin, 4 meals a day. Your first dive of the trip is 180 feet down to a wellhead to swap a sacrificial anode. And here's where the whole story flips on you. You went to welding school. You call yourself an underwater welder. But out here, wet welding is maybe 10% of the job. The other 90% is brushing, bolting, swapping anodes, torquing flanges, hot tapping pipe, and marking inspection points for the tech up top. The title is a lie the whole industry agrees to tell. The real skill isn't the weld. It's staying calm and conserving effort on a gas budget the supervisor already calculated to the liter, because panic burns air, and air is the only thing keeping you alive down here. Then, on day 11, you actually do the thing on the poster. A pipeline patch. You needle gun the growth off the joint. You set your polarity. You tack the patch in 4 places. You strike the root pass with waterproofed rod. You chip. You cap. You flag the inspection point for the surface tech. The supervisor keys the mic and says 1 word through the helmet speaker. Good. The math on that shift, a day rate around $450 plus depth pay of $2 a foot. Call it $580 for the day. 3 hitches in, you're clearing $90,000 a year, while the government's own numbers put the average commercial diver at about $76,000. And there are only around 3,400 of you in the entire country. You watch your bank account climb faster than you can spend it. And then a hurricane rolls up the Gulf in October and the supervisor pulls you off a job 11 minutes in because the current is stronger than the work rate. You don't argue. You've stopped arguing with supervisors entirely, not because they're always right, but because on this boat, arguing is the tell that gets people killed. That's your third Thanksgiving missed in a row. Your sister texts a photo of the table. You tape it to the cabin wall. 2 trips later, the company asks the one question that separates the good money from the life-changing money. Do you want to go to saturation school? You say yes in a room with a broken coffee maker and a calendar 2 months out of date. You have no idea you just signed away the next decade of your holidays. Level 6, the saturation diver. You're 28. They put you on a saturation dive system. 24 divers locked inside steel, 350 meters of rated depth. On day 1, you blow down on a helium-oxygen mix to 400 feet of storage pressure, and then you live there for 28 days straight. The helium turns your voice into Donald Duck. Outside the chamber, nobody understands a word without an electronic unscrambler. The air smells like sweet plastic. The gas reclaim system runs a white noise hum you stop hearing by day 4. You sleep in a bunk with a TV bolted to the wall. Your food comes through a medical airlock. You read 3 novels a trip. Every morning at 6 a.m., you climb into a diving bell with 2 other men. It clangs down a wire to the seafloor. The bellman opens the bottom hatch, and you lock out into black water at 122 meters. You bolt a subsea manifold for 6 hours. Hot water pumps through capillaries sewn into your suit to keep you from freezing to death. The helium mix feeds through your mask. Then you lock back in, shower, eat, sleep, and do it again. The pay. American SAT divers average north of $100,000 a year and can clear $1,400 a day just in bonus while they are locked down. On the North Sea Union schedule for 2026, a saturation diver's rate runs about $2,710 a day, the number from the very first frame of this video. You cash the wire. And on day 21, in the bell on a routine run, you remember a story from school. A diver in the North Sea, 2012. His support ship lost position, and his umbilical severed at 330 feet. He survived 33 minutes on a 5-minute emergency bailout tank in near-freezing black water, only because 2 other divers fought the bell back over him in time. You finish your bolt-up. You lock in. Because there is no version of this job where you get to stop thinking about that. On day 26, the intercom in the chamber tells you your uncle died back home, and you can't leave. You are physically, chemically trapped in a steel tube. 6 days of decompression away from a funeral you will miss. You finish deco. You step off the pad. And your truck starts on the first turn like nothing happened. Final beat. The tombstone. The welder is still in the garage. Grandpa's gone now and nobody had the heart to sell it. So it sits under a tarp on the same rolling cart. The dust on the hood exactly as deep as the night before you first left for Florida. You drive home after a 28-day trip and you sleep for 36 hours. On the 3rd day, you walk into the garage and pull the tarp off. The dial is still set to 70, the number your grandfather gave you when you were 16. You strike an arc on a piece of scrap angle iron. The bead runs clean. And the bacon sizzle is the exact same sound it was half a lifetime ago. You think about the cousin who went to college and what he made last year. And you stop the thought before it finishes because that's not the comparison anymore. The trade gave you a bank account you can't spend down and a knee that clicks in the cold. It took Thanksgivings you'll never get back, and if the statistics are right, it may quietly take years off the end of your life too. You knew that the morning you signed your second SAT contract. You signed anyway. Then an 18-year-old kid from your old high school texts you. He wants to know if dive school is worth the money. You look at the certification card still tucked in your wallet, the one from that first weekend in the water all those years ago, and you write back one sentence. Show up! Don't quit, don't lie on the logbook. That's every level of an underwater welder, but there's a job out there that pays more than a saturation diver, kills at nearly the same rate, and you've probably driven past one without ever looking up. In the next video, I'll break down exactly what it costs to climb that one. My name's Calvin. I'll see you 400 feet down.